My name is Jessica Harper. I'm 34 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was the kind of person who planned everything. Grocery lists on Sunday, meetings color-coded on my calendar. I even had a 5-year plan taped to the inside of my closet door, right next to my coat hangers. Control was my comfort zone. If I could organize it, I could handle it. That was my philosophy. But on the afternoon of March 9th, I learned something that no amount of planning could have prepared me for. I died. My heart stopped for 7 minutes on the floor of a grocery store in Knoxville, Tennessee. And in those 7 minutes, I was taken somewhere that I still cannot fully explain. I stood in the presence of Jesus Christ, and he showed me what is coming in 2026. Not vaguely, not in riddles. He showed me events, signs, and warnings that left me physically shaking when I came back. I have gone back and forth about whether to share this. I've lost sleep. I've questioned my own sanity. But every time I try to stay silent, I hear the same words echoing in my chest. Tell them. So here I am, telling you. And I need you to hear all of it. That afternoon started like any other Tuesday. I just picked up my daughter Lily from school. She was in the back seat talking nonstop about some argument her friends had during lunch, and I was half listening, half making a mental grocery list. We needed milk, bread, something for dinner. I figured we'd stop at the store on the way home and be out in 15 minutes. Lily wanted to stay in the car with her tablet, and I said, fine, I'll be quick. I grabbed a cart, walked through the automatic doors, and felt the blast of cold air conditioning hit my face the way it always does. Everything was normal, fluorescent lights buzzing, a woman sampling cheese near the deli, the faint sound of pop music playing overhead. I was halfway down the cereal aisle when it happened. A pressure in my chest, not sharp, more like someone had placed a heavy stone right behind my sternum. I stopped walking, put my hand on the shelf to steady myself. I remember thinking, this is just anxiety. I've been stressed. But the pressure didn't ease. It spread, down my left arm, up into my jaw. My fingers went numb. The box of cereal I was holding hit the floor, and I remember staring at it, watching it bounce on the tile, thinking that's strange. I don't remember letting go. Then my knees buckled. I went down hard. The tile was cold against my cheek. I could see the wheels of shopping carts, someone's sneakers running toward me, and a voice far away shouting, "Call 911." And then I heard nothing. The pain vanished. The cold vanished. The fluorescent lights above me dimmed, like someone turning a slow dial, and everything went completely, perfectly dark. Now I need to explain something about what happened next, because it wasn't like falling asleep. Sleep is gradual. This was instant, like flipping a switch. One moment I was on the floor of that grocery store, and the next I was standing somewhere else entirely. There was no transition, no tunnel at first, no slow drift upward, just here and then there. The first thing I noticed was the silence, not empty silence, but full silence. The kind you might feel standing alone in a cathedral at midnight. It had weight to it. It had presence. I was standing on what felt like solid ground, but when I looked down, there was nothing beneath me except a faint silver glow, like moonlight reflecting off still water. The air wasn't hot or cold. It simply was, and it carried something I can only describe as awareness, as if the space itself was alive and watching me, not with judgment, but with attention. I looked at my hands. They were mine, but not quite. Clearer somehow, like I was seeing them in higher definition than my eyes had ever been capable of. I touched my face, felt my arms. Everything was intact, but lighter. The weight I always carried in my shoulders. The low hum of anxiety that had been my background noise for as long as I could remember. It was gone, just gone. I stood there for what might have been seconds, or might have been hours. Time didn't behave the way I was used to. And then I became aware of something ahead of me. Not a shape, not a figure, a pull. The way a compass needle knows where north is. Something in me knew which direction to go, and without deciding to, I started walking. As I moved forward, the silver glow beneath me began to warm. It shifted from pale gray to soft gold, and with every step the light intensified. Not painfully, not the way staring at the sun burns your eyes. This light fed something inside me. It was like being hungry your entire life without knowing it, and then suddenly tasting food for the first time. I could feel it in my chest, in my bones, in parts of myself I didn't know existed. The silence began to change too. It wasn't silent anymore, not exactly. There was a sound, low and constant, like a single note being held by 1,000 voices so far away you could barely hear them. It was the most beautiful sound I have ever encountered, and I knew instinctively that it wasn't music being performed. It was the sound of something existing, the sound of that place simply being what it was. Then I saw him. He didn't appear the way characters appear in movies, stepping out from behind something or materializing in a flash. He was just there, the way the ground was there, the way the light was there, as if he had always been standing in that exact spot, and I had simply walked close enough to see him. He was tall, but not imposing. His robe was plain, a muted white that seemed to hold every color inside it when the light shifted. His face was not what I expected. I'd grown up seeing paintings, stained glass windows, movie portrayals. None of them were right. His features weren't European, weren't any single ethnicity I could name. His face looked like everyone and no one, familiar in a way that went deeper than recognition. But his eyes are what undid me. They held everything, sorrow and joy at the same time, knowledge that spanned further than I could fathom, and love. A love so intense it didn't feel like an emotion. It felt like a force, like gravity. I fell to my knees without deciding to. My body simply responded to what it was in the presence of, and he spoke my name, Jessica. Just that. One word. But when he said it, I felt every moment of my life acknowledged. Every tear I'd cried alone. Every time I'd felt invisible. Every prayer I wasn't sure anyone heard. He had heard all of it. He knew me completely, and he loved me anyway. And I understood in that instant why people weep when they talk about this. Because no human experience comes close to being fully known and fully loved at the same time. I don't know how long I knelt there. When I finally looked up, his expression had changed. The warmth was still there, the love hadn't dimmed, but something else had entered his eyes. Urgency. He reached out his hand and said, "Stand, Jessica. I need you to see." The moment I took his hand, the golden space around us fractured like glass, and I was somewhere else. We were standing on what looked like a hillside, but it wasn't any hill I recognized. Below us stretched a landscape that flickered between the real and the symbolic, as if I were seeing the physical world and its spiritual undercurrent at the same time. I could see cities, not specific ones I could name, but cities as a concept, millions of lives layered on top of each other. And above those cities hung something dark, not clouds, not smoke. It was more like a weight, a spiritual heaviness pressing down on everything. I looked at Jesus and he was staring at it with an expression I will never forget. It was grief. "Do you see it?" he asked. I nodded. "What is it?" "It is what is coming," he said, and then he showed me. The first thing he revealed was a season of shaking. Not an earthquake, not a single event, but a prolonged period where everything people had built their security on would be tested. I saw financial systems stumbling, not collapsing overnight, but wobbling like a table with one leg shorter than the others. I saw people checking their phones with panic on their faces, accounts drained, investments dissolved, pensions that had promised safety suddenly worth nothing. But Jesus was clear with me. He said, "This is not punishment. This is exposure. What was built on sand must be revealed for what it is so that my people will stop building on it." He showed me something specific. I saw a moment in early 2026, a disruption so sudden that it made international news within hours. I don't know if it was a market crash or a bank failure or something else, but the feeling attached to it was shock. The word that came to me was overnight. Something that people assumed was permanent would prove to be fragile in a single night. And the panic that followed was not just financial, it was existential. People weren't just scared of losing money. They were scared because the thing they had trusted most had proven it couldn't protect them. Jesus looked at me and said, "When their false foundations crack, many will finally look up, but many others will grab for new idols even faster. That is the danger." He told me that the shaking would come in waves, not all at once. One wave financial, another political, another natural, and each wave would be closer together than the last, like contractions before a birth. I asked him, "Birth of what?" And he said, "Birth of clarity. The world will not be able to pretend anymore." The next vision came fast. The hillside dissolved, and I was standing in what looked like a church, but something was wrong. The pews were full. The worship band was playing. People had their hands raised. But the light that I had come to associate with God's presence, that warm golden glow, it wasn't there. The room was spiritually cold. I could feel it, like walking into a freezer, even though everyone around me was smiling. Jesus stood beside me watching. He said, "This is what grieves me most." I looked closer. The pastor was speaking, and his words sounded right on the surface. Hope, blessing, victory. But as I listened, I realized something was missing. There was no mention of repentance, no acknowledgement of sin, no call to surrender. It was all comfort and no conviction. Then Jesus waved his hand, and I saw dozens of churches, hundreds, all at once, like looking at a mosaic. Some were massive buildings with screens and lights. Others were small rooms with folding chairs. And in many of them, the same emptiness, the form of worship without the fire. "My shepherds have become entertainers," Jesus said, and his voice carried a weight that pressed on my chest. They feed my people candy when they need bread. They tell them what they want to hear instead of what they need to know. And because of this, millions will be unprepared for what is coming. He showed me pastors who knew the truth but stayed silent because they were afraid of losing attendance. He showed me church leaders more concerned with their platforms than their congregations. And then he showed me the contrast. Small gatherings, house churches, prayer groups, meeting in living rooms and basements, no stage, no production, just people on their knees, genuinely seeking God. And in those rooms, the golden light was almost blinding. He said, "I am not leaving the church, I am refining it. What cannot survive the fire was never truly mine." In 2026, many buildings will empty, but many living rooms will fill. Watch for this. It is not decline. It is correction. Then the vision shifted again, and what I saw next shook me deeper than anything before. I was standing above a map, looking down at nations, and I could see lines of tension running between them like cracks in a windshield. Red lines, hot and pulsing, connecting regions I won't name because I don't want to be specific where Jesus was not specific with me. But I understood the meaning. Conflict was coming. Not the kind of distant wars that scroll across a news ticker while people eat breakfast. This was closer, personal, the kind of conflict where ordinary people suddenly realized that the stability they took for granted was an illusion. I saw soldiers, but not just on battlefields. I saw them in cities. I saw checkpoints where there hadn't been checkpoints before. I saw people clutching their children, trying to cross borders that had been open the week before. And over all of it, I felt a suffocating spirit of fear, not just human fear, something orchestrated, something intentional. Jesus said the enemy uses war the way a predator uses darkness. It is cover. While the world watches the bombs, it misses what is being stolen. He showed me that the true war was not between nations. It was between truth and deception. The physical conflicts were distractions, engineered to keep people so afraid that they would accept anything in exchange for safety. And that is when he showed me the agreements. I saw leaders shaking hands, signing documents, standing at podiums, promising peace, and the crowds cheered. But Jesus said, "Test every peace that is offered. Not all peace comes from me. Some peace is a door disguised as a gift. And once you walk through it, it locks behind you." I asked him what he meant, and he showed me systems being built, networks of control presented as convenience. He showed me people surrendering freedoms they didn't even realize they had, one small agreement at a time, because each step seemed so reasonable. He said, "The chains of the future will not look like chains. They will look like upgrades." I was trembling by this point. My spirit, or whatever I was in that place, could barely hold the weight of what I was being shown. I wanted to look away, to go back to the golden light and the peace I had felt earlier. But Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder, and a wave of calm moved through me. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of something stronger than fear. He said, "I am not showing you this to frighten you. I am showing you this so that my people can prepare. Fear is the enemy's tool. Awareness is mine." Then the landscape changed one final time. I saw 2026, but not the dark parts. I saw the other side. I saw people waking up to a hunger they couldn't explain, a hunger for God that no amount of entertainment, money, or comfort could satisfy. I saw young people walking away from everything the world told them to chase and falling on their faces in prayer. I saw families that had been fractured for years suddenly reconciling, weeping in each other's arms, old grudges dissolving like smoke. I saw a revival, but not the kind with a stage and a celebrity preacher. This revival was quiet. It moved through neighborhoods, through workplaces, through hospital rooms. It looked like a nurse praying over a patient who hadn't asked for it. It looked like a businessman closing a deal and then feeling convicted to give the money away. It looked like a teenager putting down her phone and opening a Bible for the first time because something inside her wouldn't stop whispering. And the presence of God in those moments was so thick, so tangible, that I could see it. A golden mist settling over homes, over streets, over entire towns. Jesus smiled for the first time since the visions had begun. "This is also coming," he said. "The shaking and the awakening will happen at the same time. The same events that drive some into fear will drive others into my arms, and those who come to me will be given strength they did not know was possible." He looked at me with an intensity that burned but did not hurt. "Tell them this, Jessica. The year ahead will be the most important year many of them have ever lived. Not because of what the enemy will do, but because of what I am about to do. I am moving. I have already begun. The signs will be unmistakable for those with eyes to see." He said, "Tell them to pray like they have never prayed before. Not from routine, but from desperation. Tell them to read my word, not for comfort, but for weapons. Tell them to gather with other believers, not in buildings built to impress, but in rooms filled with honesty. Tell them to let go of everything they are clinging to that is not me, and tell them not to be afraid, because I have already won this. The outcome is not in question. Only the path is uncertain, and that path is different for every soul. Then he said something that I carry with me every day since. He said, Jessica, many of my children are asleep, not because they are wicked, but because they are tired. The world has exhausted them with noise and distraction and busyness until they can barely hear my voice anymore. 2026 will be the alarm clock. Some will wake up gently, others will be jolted awake. But I would rather they be shaken and saved than comfortable and lost. I felt tears streaming down my face, except I didn't have a physical face in that moment. The tears were coming from somewhere deeper, from the core of whatever I was in that place. I wanted to stay. I told him that. I said I don't want to go back. The world is loud and confusing and painful, and this place is everything I've ever needed. He looked at me with the gentlest expression I have ever seen on any face, human or divine, and said, I know, but you are not finished yet, and there are people who need to hear what you have seen. The gold around me began to fade. I felt a pulling sensation, not violent, but firm, like a current drawing me backward. Jesus didn't move. He stood in the same place, radiant, steady, his eyes locked on mine as I drifted further away. The last thing I heard him say was, tell them I am closer than they think, and do not wait. The next thing I remember is pain. Real, physical, crushing pain. My chest felt like it had been hit with a hammer. I opened my eyes and saw fluorescent lights, felt the cold tile under my back, heard someone saying she's back. She's breathing. A paramedic was leaning over me, his face slick with sweat. A woman I didn't know was holding my hand, crying, and somewhere behind them I could hear my daughter screaming for me. They told me later that my heart had stopped for 7 minutes. 7 minutes of no pulse, no breath, no measurable brain activity. The paramedics had nearly called it. But then my heart restarted on its own, just as they were preparing to stop resuscitation efforts. The doctors couldn't explain it. They ran tests for days. No blockage, no congenital defect, no toxicology findings. A perfectly healthy 34-year-old woman whose heart simply stopped and then started again with no medical explanation. They used the word miraculous in my chart. I saw it myself. I spent 4 days in the hospital. I didn't tell anyone what I had seen. Not at first. I lay in that bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of it, testing it against every rational explanation I could think of. Oxygen deprivation, hallucination, the brain's last electrical fireworks before death. I wanted it to be one of those things, because if it was real, then everything was about to change, not just for me, but for the world. And I wasn't sure I was strong enough to carry that. On the third night, I woke up at 2 a.m, the hospital room silent except for the beeping monitors, and I heard it, clear as if someone were standing beside my bed. Tell them, do not wait. I started crying, not from fear, but from the weight of it. Because I knew it was real, I knew it had happened, and I knew I couldn't stay quiet. So this is me not staying quiet. I don't know what 2026 will look like down to the day or the hour. Jesus didn't give me a calendar. He gave me something more important. He gave me an understanding of the season. Shaking is coming. Financial, political, natural, spiritual. It will come in waves, each one closer than the last. But alongside that shaking, a revival is also coming, one that won't look like anything the religious establishment expects. It will be raw, messy, intimate, and real. It will happen in living rooms and parking lots and hospital bedsides, and it will be led by people who have nothing to offer except their honesty before God. I don't know why he chose me to see this. I am not a pastor. I am not a theologian. I am a mother from Tennessee who makes grocery lists and drives a Honda and worries too much about things that don't matter. But maybe that's exactly why. Because this message isn't for the experts. It's for the ordinary people. The ones who are tired, the ones who feel like something is off but can't name it, the ones who have been going through the motions of faith without feeling its fire in years. He sees you. He hasn't forgotten you. And what is coming, as terrifying as parts of it will be, is ultimately an invitation, not to fear, to wake up. I heard him say it, and now I'm saying it to you. Do not wait. Whatever you need to make right, make it right. Whatever you've been putting off with God, stop putting it off. Whatever is keeping you from genuine prayer, let it go. Because the alarm is about to sound. And those who are already awake will be ready, and those who are ready will be used in ways they never imagined possible. My name is Jessica Harper. I died for 7 minutes on the floor of a grocery store, and what I saw on the other side changed me forever. I didn't come back with all the answers. I came back with the most important one. He is real. He is coming. And 2026 is the year the whole world will know it. Do not be afraid, but do not be asleep. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because the time is now.